I believe the proposal for an AI Act has the potential to become a paradigm as well when it comes to the standardization of the development of the dissemination of AI systems within or outside of the EU. I don't know if it's an adequate strategy, but I see its potential.
In the rapidly evolving landscape of technology, artificial intelligence, AI, has become a defining feature of the contemporary world. As such, it has drawn the attention of policymakers and academics alike, who are grappling with the challenges of how to regulate the development and use of AI systems while ensuring their safety and ethicality. In this podcast, made for the Digital Technologies and International Relations class, our host, Raith, delves into this complex topic with our guest Kalliopi Terzidou, a PhD candidate of the University of Luxembourg, whose research focuses on the evaluation of AI applications for the automation of the judicial administration of the European Union courts. Together with Kalliopi, we will explore the EU's approach to AI governance, discuss the proposal for an AI Act, and the challenges of balancing innovation with protecting the safety and rights of citizens.
Thank you for being here, Kalliopi.
Thank you, Iris, for having me. I'm very honored.
So, to begin with, what struck your initial interest in artificial intelligence as a trained lawyer?
I did my master's degrees in the Netherlands in the Advanced Dilemma of Law and Digital Technologies. And during our first course, we were concerned with the regulation of digital technologies, among others, artificial intelligence. My professor mentioned a very interesting case of how AI was used to predict Supreme Justice's voting based on a set of features like their term or the issue at hand. And that struck my interest because I started thinking how these systems may affect features like the independence or the impartiality of the judiciary. And so I chose to, for my PhD, to be concerned with how artificial intelligence is used in courts and to evaluate it under the right to fair trial. I come from a country where, unfortunately, we have big court delays. So I'm also looking at the advantages of artificial intelligence regarding access to courts and minimization of court delays.
So before we begin with our actual conversation, it's of course very important to clarify what AI is. So for the purpose of our discussion, how would you suggest we define AI?
Thank you for your question. This is a very important question. And right off, I have to say that there is no universal definition of artificial intelligence. Even computer engineers do not know how to uniformly define AI. However, since our focus today is the EU, I have chosen to define it as EU bodies see it fit. So starting off with a high-level group of experts on artificial intelligence back in 2018, they defined artificial intelligence as systems designed by humans that, and given a complex goal, they act in a physical environment to interpret collected data to achieve a certain goal. So right off, you see these are digital systems programmed by humans for a specific goal, and they interact with their environment by processing data to give output values.
Let's take a first step back. To repeat the definition that Kalliopi gave us, according to the expert group at the EU, AI is a system designed by humans that, given a complex goal, act in a physical environment to interpret collected data to achieve a certain goal. Definitions are very important when it comes to regulation because they include or exclude different kind of technologies. This definition here is both very broad, which would mean it encompasses many different systems, but also very vague, allowing for large leeway in interpreting which systems fall under its definition. We will see further on an example of how important definitions are when Kalliopi will talk about the inclusion or exclusion of generative AI in the EU AI Act.
So, as you already mentioned, your research focuses on the use of AI in judicial administration under the lenses specifically of the human right of fair trial. How is your research focus treated under this current AI governance framework in the EU?
So, as I said in the beginning, my concern is AI applications for the automation of judicial administration. So, to begin very generally, there's no specific regulation or directive treating the effects of AI on human rights, including for trial. So apart from the European Convention of Human Rights, Article 6, that I'm concerned with, there are some legal acts under the EU that are trying to regulate artificial intelligence. For the purpose of this question, I'm going to mention the proposal for an AI Act that seeks to regulate the development and putting into the market of artificial intelligence products. The preamble of the proposal for an AI Act states that AI systems intended to assist judicial authorities in researching and interpreting facts and the law, and in applying the law to a concrete set of facts, must be classified as high-risk AI.
This concept of high-risk AI is part of a larger concept at the heart of the proposed regulatory framework by the EU. You can imagine a pyramid divided up into 4 sections. At the bottom of this pyramid are the AI systems that pose a minimal risk to society, such as, for example, AI-enabled spam filters. These will remain freely allowed under the AI Act. One step up, we have limited risk AI, which simply adds a transparency requirement. For example, when using a chatbot, users should be made aware that they're interacting with a machine instead of a human. On the third level, we reach the classification Kalliopi mentioned before, high-risk AI systems. We will talk a little bit more about these later on, but essentially, these include any AI system used in critical infrastructure, education, or the judicial system. Here, the AI Act demands strict obligations before these tools can enter the market. And finally, at the very top of our pyramid, are AI systems that pose an unacceptable risk, such as a social scoring system. These, under the AI Act, would be completely banned. Let's get back to our high-risk AI systems.
High-risk AI, it's artificial intelligence systems that pose a threat to the safety and to the rights of EU citizens. So you see here that these systems that help judges, among others, to research and interpret facts are considered by the European Commission as systems that may pose a risk to the rights of EU citizens. And this comes with a series of requirements. They have to be developed in a certain way, following data governance, risk assessment, and other technical or administrative managerial requirements. So it's important to keep in mind this risk classification under the proposal, not just for my topic, for which I talked about, but for a number of AI applications that are going to be developed within the EU borders.
So do you feel that this EU proposal for an AI Act is an adequate strategy for AI governance in the European Union?
So, of course, I cannot give a definite answer because at this point, this is a proposal. I believe it's still debated and negotiated between the Commission, the Parliament, and the Council of the EU. It's rumored to enter into effect end of this year or beginning of next. I can make humble prediction at this moment by referencing the implementation and enforcement of a similar act or regulation, the General Data Protection Regulation. This is also a legislative act that kind of indirectly regulates, among others, digital systems through the processing of personal data. What we saw with the GDPR is that even though its scope was within the EU, so it regulated the processing of personal data that happened within the EU, it also covered external EU actors to the extent that they offer their products in the EU. So I think the GDPR set a paradigm. We see now a lot of states that are developing legal acts of a similar nature. And I believe the proposal for an AI Act has the potential to become a paradigm as well when it comes to the standardization of the development of the dissemination of AI systems within or outside of the EU. I don't know if it's an adequate strategy, but I see its potential.
A question that comes to mind right now as you were talking is, do you feel that it was easy for all the member states to agree on this proposal, or were there member states that were really thinking in completely different directions, as is often the case in the EU?
Discussions on possible amendments to the proposal's text are still ongoing at the EU Parliament and the Council of the EU, and tensions are evident in certain points of the proposed act, potentially delaying its entry into force. One of the most crucial points of discussion is the regulation of general-purpose AI systems. The Council of the EU proposed a definition back in 2022, differentiating general purpose from conventional AI systems that general purpose ones are intended to perform generally applicable functions, potentially used in a plurality of contexts and integrated in a plurality of other AI systems. General purpose AI systems are considered under the amendment as high risk because they present certain dangers to the safety and to the rights of EU citizens and must comply with requirements such as quality management to be released in the EU. One example that your listeners might be aware of is ChatGPT, that is a generative AI system. It is considered general purpose AI because it can be applied in multiple contexts as part of multiple AI systems, and it presents high risks such as misinformation and personal data breaches. This is just one point of the current debates. There are other debates on the prohibition of biometric recognition systems and the narrowing of the definition of AI to exclude statistical approaches. One possible cause for these debates might be the coexistence of the intentions on the one hand to sufficiently protect the rights and safety of EU citizens, and on the other, to establish a sufficiently wide regulatory sandbox for the promotion of innovation and for the creation of an attractive environment for business investment in the EU. Ultimately, the Union wants to become competitive in relation to the US and China regarding the development and dissemination of AI systems in the market. But it must be noted that these intentions should not be viewed as contradictory, but of course this should be pursued in parallel and in a balanced way.
Do you think there is a necessity of AI governance by design, and can it be combined with this regulatory approach of the EU?
I believe in the pathetic dot theory of Professor Lessig, which says that a single entity, whether it's a human being or in this case a concept like artificial intelligence governance, can be regulated under different forces. And so, of course, we have regulation under legal acts, and we mentioned extensively now the proposal for an AI Act. But also, you can regulate a system through technology, market forces, and social norms. And so this concept of AI governance by design relates more to regulation by architecture, by technology. So I think these two forces, AI governance by design and the regulatory approach, must coexist to have AI systems that are trustworthy, and by trustworthy, I mean they're legal, they're ethical, and they are technically robust to be disseminated in the EU market. I think AI governance by design can happen in a number of ways. Of course, some requirements would be to have transparent, unbiased, and technically robust systems that will be oversighted by human beings. And so developers right on from the design and developing of the AI applications must make systems explainable. So they shouldn't be just machine readable, but their outputs should be explainable to human beings in a human intelligible language. And they shouldn't be, of course, biased. And when I say biased, I mean they shouldn't make inferences based on the protected grounds of, for example, race, gender, or religion. So it matters with which data you train the algorithm. And it should be, of course, technically robust as well. So it should be resilient to cyber attacks and have privacy by design features built in. So this is a very hard list to be achieved by developers. And of course, the key is that developers and legal experts, ethical experts work together to realize this AI governance by design. This is an ongoing process, of course, and companies should be well equipped with all the necessary experts to manage this goal. Citizens should be aware of the systems with which they interact with, either concerning the public sector or the private sector. So either with the role as citizens or with the role as consumers. And this is very important. I will again mention GDPR in the sense that there are transparency requirements when it comes to the processing of personal data. Providers should inform users on how their personal data are being processed through, for example, terms of use. I think with AI systems, especially those that pose a high risk, citizens should, or consumers should be informed in a similar manner that they interact with high-risk AI systems, which rights are under threat. For example, the right to non-discrimination if the systems are likely to be biased, the right to privacy if AI systems, for example, for facial recognition are surveilling them, or their human dignity if AI systems are likely to manipulate them, for example, through an e-commerce platform that tracks consumers' interest to make very specific suggestions. So I think this is, of course, an obligation of providers, but it's also a duty of us, citizens and consumers of AI products, to be aware that we interact with them and to know which rights of us are under threat. So I will close with these two comments. I think we are going to be living with AI systems from now on. So it's good to know how they work and how they influence us.
Thank you, Kalliopi. Thank you very much for your time today. Your thoughts on the current and future state of AI governance in the EU were really very insightful. On behalf of my whole team, I would like to thank you and wish you the best for your future.
Thank you for inviting me and for your wishes.
This podcast was produced by students at the Geneva Graduate Institute for the course Digital Technologies Reshaping the Conduct and Study of International Relations. Our interview partner was Kalliopi Terzidou. The interview was held by Raith. Background research was done by Mentari Binar, Myrtle Cleona Priddy, and Alexandre Hunenberger. Editing by Samuel Smith.